In a calm, glassy lake nestled between mountains lived a young fish named Nilo. He was fast, graceful, and curious, always wondering what existed beyond the water's edge. Every day he watched the birds above, wings wide, soaring with ease through the sky. Nilo admired them deeply, their freedom, their speed, their height. He often imagined himself flying, breaking through the surface and soaring like they did. It seemed magical, powerful, right. So one day, Nilo swam to the oldest turtle in the lake, a quiet observer who had seen generations come and go. "I want to fly," Nilo said with wide eyes. "I want to be like the birds." The turtle looked at him for a long moment and replied, "Why?" Nilo hesitated. "Because everyone looks up to them. They go far, they're seen, respected." The turtle nodded slowly. "And what do you do that they can't?" Nilo blinked. "I don't know. I've never thought about that." The turtle gently pointed his flipper toward the lake bed. "You dance through currents they can't touch. You feel the rhythm of water. You explore worlds they'll never see. Fish don't need to fly, Nilo. They were born for depth, not height." But Nilo didn't hear the wisdom yet. He just saw what he lacked. That night, while the birds rested in trees and the moon rippled on the water, Nilo swam in circles, restless. Why can't I be like them? Why can't I have what they have? He didn't yet understand that the journey of a fish was never meant to look like the journey of a bird. Over the next few days, Nilo began trying to leave the water. He swam faster and faster toward the surface, flinging himself upward again and again, only to fall back down, gasping, defeated. The birds above barely noticed. The fish below watched in confusion. They didn't understand why Nilo was chasing something so unreachable. One small fish finally asked, "Why are you trying to leave the water?" Nilo, exhausted, replied, "Because I want more. I want to be seen. I want to be admired like the birds." "But we admire you," the small fish said. "You're the fastest swimmer here. You know every current, every secret place in the lake. You showed me how to dodge the river nets. You saved my brother when he got caught in the reeds." Nilo paused. He hadn't realized anyone was watching, or that what he did had meaning down here. That night, as he floated beneath the surface, looking up at the stars, he felt torn. Part of him still longed to fly, but another part, a deeper, quieter part, began to whisper something else. What if your greatness doesn't look like theirs because it was never supposed to? The water around him shimmered with reflection, not just of the stars, but of the truth beginning to rise in him. Maybe he hadn't been failing. Maybe he'd just been looking in the wrong direction. The next morning, Nilo swam slowly to the quietest part of the lake, a deep cove where the water moved slow and the light filtered down in golden streaks. He wasn't trying to fly anymore. Not today. He was just thinking. He remembered the turtle's words, the small fish's voice, the countless times he'd risked his strength chasing a sky that was never meant for him. He thought about all the times he helped others, guided them, protected them, none of which required wings. He had spent so long trying to escape the water, he had forgotten the power he held within it. That afternoon, as he glided through the currents, he saw a young fish caught in a swirl, panicked and thrashing. Without hesitation, Nilo dove in. He twisted and turned with precision only years of swimming could teach. Within seconds, he freed the young fish and led them to safety. When it was over, the young fish looked at him, wide-eyed. "You saved me. How did you know what to do?" Nilo smiled for the first time in days. "Because I've spent my whole life in this water. It's where I belong. And maybe you've been chasing someone else's journey too. Maybe you've looked up so long you've forgotten the world you were built to explore. But the truth is, fish can't fly, and they don't need to. Your strength isn't in what others can do. It's in what only you can do. This channel is here to remind you of that your journey matters, even if it looks nothing like anyone else's. So if you're ready to stop comparing and start owning your difference, subscribe, not for perfection, not for noise, but for truth, perspective, and stories that bring you back to yourself. Because you don't need wings to be extraordinary, you just need to swim your own way. Days turned into weeks, and Nilo no longer threw himself toward the surface. Instead, he swam deeper, into caverns other fish were too afraid to explore. He learned how light bent through water, how currents whispered secrets only the still could hear. He began mapping unseen tunnels and guiding the youngest swimmers to safety. He became a quiet legend, not for flying, but for mastering the world he was born into. And slowly, he stopped thinking about the birds, not because they weren't magnificent, but because he no longer needed to be one. One afternoon, the old turtle found him again, resting by a bed of river stones. "You stopped trying to fly," the turtle said, smiling. "I started trying to be," Nilo replied. They sat together in silence, one ancient, one awakening, while the water moved gently around them. Nilo realized something he had missed all along. Chasing someone else's path doesn't just tire you, it makes you forget who you are. And once you stop running, once you return to where your strength lives, you don't just find peace, you find purpose. And in that purpose, comparison dies, the noise fades, and you start to move, not to prove anything, but to express everything that already lives inside you. One morning, as the lake shimmered under a rising sun, a group of young fish gathered near the reeds. They had heard stories about a swimmer who knew every current, who could glide through danger with ease, who never needed wings to become remarkable. They waited silently, eyes scanning the deep, until a gentle ripple appeared. Nilo emerged, calm, focused, radiant in the simplicity of just being himself. He didn't arrive to impress. He didn't speak loudly. He just swam as he always did, with ease, with purpose, with quiet command. The young ones followed him into a network of underwater caves, watching how he moved, how he listened to the water, how he led, not with force, but with presence. And something shifted in them. They stopped thinking about what they weren't. They started wondering what they were. That night, Nilo returned to his quiet cove, alone. Not lonely, just full. He had given without losing himself, taught without raising his voice, led without needing to be seen. The lake was no longer a prison to escape, it was his canvas. And with every swim, every gentle turn, every wordless lesson, he was painting a legacy. He hadn't needed to leave the water to become extraordinary. He had simply needed to trust that what made him different was what made him great. As twilight settled over the lake and the stars began to shimmer above the surface, Nilo floated beneath the sky, still and at peace. He no longer looked up wishing to fly. He looked within, proud of what he had built in the deep. He had learned that greatness isn't found by chasing someone else's sky. It's found by owning the waters you were born to move through. He had seen how trying to become what he wasn't had drained him, and how embracing his true nature had lifted him beyond comparison, beyond doubt, beyond noise. And that's where you come in, because maybe you've spent years measuring your life against someone else's highlight reel. Maybe you've tried to shrink yourself into their definition of success, but fish can't fly, and they don't need to. You weren't made to live someone else's story. You were made to master your own. So now the only question left is this: if you stopped trying to escape who you are, how far could you go by being exactly who you